Hello, boys and girls of Cambridge Springs Elementary. I thought I would do a read aloud that has a rabbit in it because with Easter coming up, I thought it would be something that would connect really well. So this book is called Huge Harold, and it was written by Bill Peet. And Bill Peet is one of my favorite authors because a lot of his stories are rhyming, and you'll see that this one is. When Harold the rabbit was tiny and small, his feet started growing, and that's about all. "Oh, gracious!" his mother exclaimed in surprise. "They're 2 times too big for a rabbit your size." "That's a sign," said his father. "He'll grow to great height." And father's prediction turned out to be right. For Harold began to get bigger each day. He grew all around and in every which way. "Please," cried his mother, "stop growing right now. Please, Harold, you're nearly as big as a cow." "Oh, what a big problem," his poor father said. "There's no place around here where Harold can hide. He can't hide in bushes or in hollow logs. He'll soon be discovered by hunters and dogs." "That's right," his poor mother wailed in despair. "He'll have to go live in a deep wood somewhere." Look how big he is. So with tears in their eyes, the first thing the next day, they watched as huge Harold, their son, hopped away. He galloped along on his big rabbit feet, off through a meadow of waving gold wheat. He crossed a green pasture without being seen, then he followed a creek bed along a ravine. He hopped through a cornfield along a rail fence and came to a woods that was gloomy and dense. "I must say," said Harold, "it doesn't look cheery. It looks very spooky and creepy and eerie. I suppose," he continued, "there's nothing to fear, for it doesn't seem likely there's anyone here." Would you go in that forest? As he hopped down a path through the twisty old trees, there wasn't a sound but a whisper of breeze. Then he heard a faint rustle, a twig snapping sound, and he stopped in his tracks to look quickly around. He saw foxes and weasels with eyes black and beady, and a tree full of owls with eyes fierce and greedy. "Now," said one owl, "if we play it just right, we'll all have a big rabbit banquet tonight." "I'm sorry," said Harold, "to say I can't stay." And in one frantic leap he was off and away. He raced through the bushes at such a fast pace that the weasels and foxes soon gave up the chase. But Harold kept running, so great was his fright, till the spooky old forest was miles out of sight. "I'm tired," said Harold. "I'm through for the day." And he flopped down to rest on a big stack of hay. But his nap was cut short by a bossy old cow, who said, "Get off our breakfast and get out right now." "And stay out of my pen and don't eat in my trough," said a grimy old pig. "Now you'd better be off." Of course there was nothing that Harold could say, so he left the cow pasture and went on his way. As he rambled along, a sweet scent crossed the breeze, the fresh green aroma of lettuce and peas. A scarecrow stood by with his arms in the air, as if he might say, "Help yourself, I don't care." But Harold had no more than started his feast when he heard someone shouting, "Now stop it, you beast!" A farmer came running across a barn lot, took aim with his rifle, and fired a shot. Harold had never been shot at before, and he raced on in panic for 5 miles or more. Then he stopped at a creek and sat down on a rock and tried to relax and get over the shock. "A big rabbit like me isn't safe anywhere," he said with a long, weary sigh of despair. As he sat staring helplessly down at his toes, a raindrop surprisingly plopped on his nose. Wind whipped the cattails and stirred up the creek. Lightning shot through the sky in a long, jagged streak. "It's a storm," said poor Harold. "I'd better find shelter." And away to a hilltop he ran helter-skelter. He discovered a house, a deserted old place, with dark, ghostly windows like eyes on its face. He approached the old mansion with feelings of doubt. Which would be safer now, inside or out? His decision was made by a great thunder crash, and Harold was through the front door in a flash. He soon scrambled under a stairway to hide, and there he remained while the storm raged outside. Thunder shook the old house till its dry timbers creaked. Lightning flashed in the windows, the wind howled and shrieked. Through the whole afternoon the storm raged on and on, but finally it ran out of breath and was gone. Then Harold crawled out and began to explore. He crept up the stairs to the very top floor, which was stacked to the rafters with all sorts of things, including a bed with a mattress and springs. He tried out the bed and he found it too small. "But it's better," he reasoned, "than no bed at all." He awoke the next day to the squeak of a door and the sound of some footsteps below on the floor. So he tiptoed downstairs to see what made the noise, and came face to face with 2 terrified boys. "It's a ghost! It's a ghost!" they both screamed as they fled. But one of them stopped. "It's a rabbit," he said. "Yes, that's the big rabbit that Oliver Hatch shot at and missed in his vegetable patch." And away they both ran just as fast as they could to tell everyone in the whole neighborhood. The farmers stopped plowing and started right out to hunt the big rabbit they'd all heard about. When they reached the old mansion, no rabbit was there. He was racing far off through the country somewhere. But the hunters kept snooping and picked up the trail, and they started the hunt for the big cottontail. Huge Harold was now in a worse spot than ever. To outwit the hunters, he'd have to be clever. He ran down ravines and he ran up low ridges and waded down creeks and he hid under bridges. He ran on for many and many a mile, then finally decided to rest for a while. So he spotted a hideout, and with a big hop, he came plopping down in a leafy treetop. This fooled the hunters and also their dogs, who sniffed round the tree trunk and peeked into logs, but they never once thought to look up in the tree. It wasn't a place where a rabbit should be. So at last they gave up and all went away and promised to start again early the next day. The great hunt continued for week after week, like a countryside contest of hide and go seek. It went on through the month of September and into October and all through November. December arrived with the first heavy snow, and the temperature dropped down to 14 below. Harold shivered and shook from his frostbitten nose all the way down to his half-frozen toes. "I'm done for," he said. "I'm through altogether if I don't get out of this terrible weather." Just about then something red caught his eye, a big friendly barn on a hilltop nearby. He headed straight for it, and in one big hop, he leaped through the window way up in the top. Then he said as he lay in a big bed of hay, "This is the end. I'm through running away." Harold was spotted by Orville Croft, who heard some loud snoring way up in his loft. "Well now," he said, "doggone and dagnabbit, that's what I call a whopping big rabbit." Then all at once he heard someone shout, and he opened a window and poked his head out. Who do you think it is? "What's all the commotion and hullabaloo?" "I'd just like to know what you think you're up to." "We're hunting a rabbit," the hunters replied, "and we'll look through your barn if you'll let us inside." "He's in here," said Orville, "and here's will he'll stay, and you're not coming in, so be off on your way." The hunters all grumbled and kicked up the snow, but at last they gave up and decided to go. Orville Croft was both gentle and kind, but still Harold feared what he might have in mind. He was given fresh water and always well fed, along with the horses, both Buster and Ted. "I know," thought Harold, "just what he's up to. He'll fatten me up for a big rabbit stew." But when winter was over and spring came along, Harold discovered that he had been wrong. One day he was brushed with the greatest of care to get all the foxtails and burrs from his hair. He was hitched to a buggy with harness and reins, then went trotting off down the back country lanes. "Now this is more like it," huge Harold said. "I'm treated as well as a fine thoroughbred." At the end of the summer, he went to the fair and created a lot of excitement while there. The question came up as to whether or not a rabbit could enter the championship trot. They looked up the rules, but they couldn't find one that said it's not fair for a rabbit to run. So he ran in the race and won going away and became a champion trotter that day. The crowd loved huge Harold and all brought him treats, such as lettuce and celery, spinach and beets. It was too good to be true, like a wonderful dream. Why, they even brought Harold some carrot ice cream. But all this success didn't go to his head. He remained very modest and humble instead. For rabbits, you see, aren't affected by fame. No matter what happens, they're always the same. I hope you enjoyed that book called Huge Harold. And hopefully next week I will be adding another video with maybe another Bill Pete story. I hope to see you soon. Bye.